I'm Jill Murray. I'm lead writer for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, working with the team at Eidos Montreal.
And my name is Chris Johnston. I'm the brand manager at Crystal Dynamics.
Um, when did you guys start working on this game? I think it's 2015, right?
We don't actually announce when our
Okay.
stop or end production dates, but again, it's been a very collaborative process for us working with Eidos Montreal for this final game in the trilogy for Lara's origin story.
And it was just announced, what, 2 months ago, I believe?
We teased it in December. If you looked closely at our Twitter feed, we spell out the word shadow, which was a little secret. But we did the full reveal on April 27th. So we're a different change of campaign for us, where we wanted to not have any dark periods. We wanted to be very open with the community in terms of content that we were having for the game. So by having a much shorter and tighter campaign allowed us to be more impactful throughout.
It's like a quick turnaround, too. You announce the game, and then a few months later, in September,
It's
our
there,
fans don't
yeah.
have to wait long at all, so it's very exciting for them.
it's kind of refreshing. Like, I feel like, I don't know, in the past few years, we've been seeing a lot more of that. These big AAA titles announced, and then, hey, by the way, by the end of this year, you're already going to be playing it.
It's definitely a common trend for the industry, but I think for us, it's just we're really excited to, talk about the game finally, and fans don't have to wait very long at all until they get a chance to play the game on September 14th.
And Jill, I want to ask you as the writer, by the way, I really enjoyed it. The dialogue in this game felt very natural and smooth between the characters. I really like the themes that you're going with in this game. How much input did Crystal Dynamics have? Did they give you notes to work off of, or how much of this just came straight from you as like sort of original?
Yeah, it's been a really excellent collaboration. Crystal having led the previous two projects, Eidos Montreal having worked on them. It was a really good moment to sort of pass the torch and let a different studio take the lead. So we've been able to take our own direction and innovate in all the ways that we wanted to, but always with the security of knowing that we can check in with Crystal Dynamics, get feedback, find out what's worked before and what hasn't for the parts that Eidos wasn't working on. And it's been really great that way.
You've been working on quite a few, like I think the Assassin's Creed series you've worked mostly on before this.
Yeah, before this I worked on some Assassin's Creed games, including Liberation, for which we won a Writers Guild Award. I also did a few years working with mostly indie studios.
Is there anything that you sort of learned from those games that you wanted to sort of how sort of infected like the way you approach this game?
Oh, sure. I mean, you learn so much on every game that you work on. What I really like about this production is it has a very collaborative process for building the cinematics, where we get a lot of time to review scenes. We get things storyboarded. We see them in animatics. We can test them out in the game long before we ever take them to shoot. In the performance capture studio, we have time and opportunity to allow the actors to really interpret the script, so they're bringing something original through their performance. And then back home in Montreal, I have found the team to be very cohesively driven to all tell the same story using all the different elements of the game, be it environmental art or level design, cinematics, the gameplay dialogue itself. I would say collaboration is the big thing.
Why did you want to try to go with a darker tone? I mean, much darker, right? Especially at the end of this demo, it just really goes in places with this.
I feel
with their
like
character.
this is a much more character-driven story, and we've really allowed the characters to show us where they were already naturally going. So it's not a case of us sitting down and deciding, let's be darker or let's show them in more conflicts. It was just really about, okay, what is tomb raiding? How powerful is Lara now that she has all this power? Is she in danger of becoming like the enemy that she hates? If we introduce an antagonist who, if you had a different perspective, he could be a protagonist in his own game. Would that be interesting? What kinds of things would that lead her to question? What is this friendship with Jonah that she's had for so long? And how is he becoming a different person in his own way? And how will that cause tension in their friendship? And so then when you get all of these things together, it leads you down a particular path. And I think someone like Lara, who's so driven and obsessed and always trying to stay out in front, she almost inevitably has to come to a breaking point before it's just going to pull back and stop and think, like, wait, is there another way I could be doing this? Is this who I want to be? Like, what is the meaning of all this now that I'm so fully powerful and capable?
Is that really emotional to write?
Yes.
You know, for yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of just my approach to all writing. Like, I was a novelist before. I'm writing games now. People ask me, like, what's the difference between those two things? And I'm like, basically nothing. It's just more collaborative, and you take in, more people's contributions. But in terms of the character development, for me, it's always about looking at the world through each character's eyes, not just the protagonist, but while you're writing the antagonist, you look at the world through their eyes. While I'm writing Jonah, I'm trying to consider who he is and how he sees things. And so you do kind of bring all kinds of different parts of yourself into figuring out how other people see the world. And for me, that's how it all comes together.
During the development cycle, did you ever come across, you both can answer this, how many obstacles do you think you came across, and how did you really pull everyone together? Because I know it could be very tough.
It's like Alice in Wonderland. You do 6 impossible things before breakfast, like every single day.
Yeah, part of the challenges of working with a really big team, and thankfully we've got a really talented and skilled team. We have a lot of people on the Eidos Montreal side that have worked on the Tomb Raider franchise for years now. Like the director has been working on the game since Tomb Raider 2013. He was game director on that one. So thankfully we have lots of key people throughout different parts of the studio that are able to kind of knowledge share of their experiences to help us get through kind of humps throughout the project.
It kind of does seem like a smooth transition between the last game and this game in terms of who's working on it now. Yeah, like you said, a lot of people have already been working on this, so sometimes you would see a big difference when a new studio takes on the franchise, but this didn't. Other than the character and the writing, I really enjoyed that, but it felt familiar but in different and exciting way.
Yeah. I think you could probably speak to that as well as just the Eidos Montreal. Like, the core DNA of Tomb Raider is there, but obviously the Eidos Montreal team has been taking lead on the development, so they've been able to add, some of their kind of flair on the game as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can see the influence of Eidos Montreal through things like the hubs and the social puzzles, and the sort of open exploration that the studio has more of a heritage of producing. But on the other side, there's such a strong kind of DNA thumbprint for this series that it's just really interesting to stay loyal to that, but then to interpret it with all the new things that a new mix of people can bring and the new ideas that come out of that.
So I just want to ask you a little bit about E3. I'm always curious about the demos that are shown up on stage or shown in the back rooms. Like, how can you possibly create a demo for something like that? Because I imagine you don't want to give too much away, but you at least want to sell people on what you're creating.
Yeah.
I can tell you at a very high level, it's a very iterative process where we are literally trying lots of different things. And as a studio, it's a very collaborative process where we're getting people's feedback to make sure that we're able to highlight the new things about the game that we feel that people are going to be most interested in.
I would also add that everything you're seeing in our demos is the game. We haven't gone and created an extra demo to showcase particular things. They've really gone in and chosen the best parts of the game to showcase its different features. So what you see in the demos here, it will be in the game that you play at home on September 14th.
How important? So for you, how important is it to get the tone across to the gamers? So, like, during the demo, do you want to make sure that this tone is set right so people have a better understanding of what the rest of it's going to be like?
Interesting question. I mean, yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out a better way of asking that. I mean, how do you try to deliver that tone, but then also not give away too much?
Yeah, we're kind of tiptoeing around the core story. We don't want to get into any kind of spoiler territory, but for this, I think we have, an ensemble of demos at this point that show a very well-rounded perception of the game. We have the social hubs that show you all of the exploration and side missions and interesting characters that you can meet and talk to. We have really driven traversal sections. We've shown you the combat that has the stealth that you can break into and out of and use new tools like the fear arrows. So there really is a little bit of everything in there, and hopefully it just gives people a taste of what's to come and also makes them ask a lot of questions like, well, what is going on with that Dominguez guy? Why are people speaking English in PyTT? Those questions that will drive you to like find out the answer on September 14th.
How many E3s have you been to?
I've only done one so far. This will be my second.
This will be my eighth. Yeah.
You know, how tough is it to stand out at E3? And also, is that even really a feasible goal in 2018?
It's always a challenge because there's lots of great games out there, and so it's ultimately finding those notable things that separate you from the different games out there that you want to highlight to help you kind of get that edge.
I mean, we've seen how people so far are reacting to Lara's story, and we think it really does stand out. People have been telling us they notice. So I think actually just being able to stand up by the end of E3 is the real challenge.
Yeah, I think the key message of in this game, Lara Croft's going to become the Tomb Raider that she's destined to be is something that's resonating with everyone, that whether if you haven't played the games at all, it's like, all right, well, this is the game where I'm finally going to see Lara Croft become the Tomb Raider. But if you're one of those players that's played Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, you know, you made that investment, and this is the game that you have to experience if you played the previous one. So it's something that we're really excited about to ultimately deliver this moment in Lara Croft's origin story.
Does going to E3, like talking to other developers and stuff, does that sort of get you motivated to go back to the studio and get to work again, like sort of refill the tank a little bit? It's probably difficult because you're
developers. We always want to be developing. It's great to get out and talk to people and find out what they think about the game. It does fuel you to return. It's nice to be reminded that you're working on something that people are looking forward to. So
I think everyone's unique in that way, but I'm highly competitive, so I want to go out there.
Yes.
I want to go out there and put out the best product that I possibly can. So while E3 is a very tiring process, it's definitely one of those things that once you get through it, it opens your eyes to some things that maybe you wouldn't have seen earlier on throughout the development process.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time, and I look forward to playing it in September.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.